9 people went into the mountains. None of them came back. When rescuers finally found their campsite, the tent had been sliced open from the inside. Their footprints led away into the darkness. Some were barefoot, some were half-dressed. One was missing her tongue. And whatever frightened them that night was never found. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most disturbing, unsolved mysteries in history. To understand what happened on that mountain, we have to go back to January 1959, because what began as an ordinary hiking expedition would end in a nightmare nobody could explain. The Soviet Union, January 1959. The Cold War was at its peak. Across the vast frozen landscape of Russia, winter temperatures routinely dropped below -30 degrees Celsius. Most people avoided the wilderness during this time of year. But for a group of young adventurers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, the harsh conditions were part of the attraction. These were not inexperienced hikers. They were highly trained skiers and outdoor enthusiasts. People who had spent years learning how to survive in some of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. Leading the expedition was a 23-year-old radio engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. Friends described him as intelligent, calm under pressure, and exceptionally organized. If anyone could successfully guide a team through the remote Ural Mountains in winter, it was Igor Dyatlov. The mission was ambitious. The group planned to ski deep into the northern Ural Mountains and eventually reach Mount Otorten, a difficult route that would earn them a prestigious Grade 3 hiking certification. At the time, it was one of the highest levels of recognition available to Soviet hikers. 10 people were selected for the journey. 8 men, 2 women, all experienced, all confident, all excited. None of them had any reason to believe they would never return. The expedition began on January 23rd. Photographs taken during those first days reveal smiling faces, friends laughing together, sharing meals, posing for the camera. The atmosphere was light-hearted, almost festive, as they traveled by train and truck toward the wilderness. Looking at those photographs today, there is something unsettling about them, because every smile, every joke, every moment captured on film would become part of the final record of their lives. Among the group was a 21-year-old economics student named Lyudmila Dubinina, strong-willed, determined, and respected by her teammates. There was also Rustem Slobodin, an experienced athlete known for his endurance, Zenaida Kolmogorova, energetic and optimistic, Alexander Kolovatov, a physics student with a brilliant mind, and several others who shared the same passion for adventure. Together, they formed a close-knit team, bound by trust. Trust that would soon be tested in ways none of them could imagine. As the group moved deeper into the wilderness, one member began experiencing severe health problems. His name was Yuri Yudin. Pain in his back and joints made it increasingly difficult for him to continue. Reluctantly, he made the decision to turn back. The farewell was emotional. The hikers hugged him, took photographs, promised they would see him again when the expedition was over. But they never did. Years later, Yuri would become haunted by that goodbye, because he was the only member of the expedition who survived, the last person to see his friends alive. The remaining 9 hikers pressed onward, deeper into the mountains, deeper into isolation, and closer to the mystery that would eventually bear Igor Dyatlov's name. As the days passed, conditions became increasingly difficult. Snowstorms swept across the landscape. Visibility dropped. The temperature continued to fall, yet the group remained in good spirits. Their diaries reveal humor, laughter, confidence. At one point, they joked about singing songs and sharing stories around camp. Nothing in their writing suggested fear. Nothing suggested danger. Nothing suggested that disaster was approaching. Then came February 1st. the day everything changed. The group was attempting to reach their next destination when worsening weather conditions forced them off course. Strong winds battered the mountainside. Snow reduced visibility to almost nothing. Navigating became extremely difficult. Some researchers believe the group accidentally veered west instead of south. Others believe they intentionally changed their route. Whatever happened, the hikers found themselves on the slope of a mountain known by the local Mansi people as Kholat Syakhl. The name is often translated as Mountain of the Dead. At the time, it was simply another geographic location. Today, it has become one of the most infamous places in the world. As darkness approached, the hikers faced a decision. They could descend into the nearby forest, where there was shelter from the wind, or they could establish camp on the exposed mountainside. For reasons that remain debated to this day, they chose the mountainside. Perhaps they wanted to avoid losing altitude. Perhaps they believed conditions would improve by morning. Perhaps they simply underestimated the danger. Whatever the reason, they began setting up camp. Photographs recovered later show the team working together, planting ski poles, preparing equipment, building their tent against the snowy slope. It would be the final photographs ever taken by the group. As evening settled over the mountain, the wind howled across the barren landscape. Snow drifted against the tent. The temperature continued to plunge. Inside the shelter, the hikers likely prepared dinner, changed clothes, recorded notes, and discussed the next stage of their journey. Everything appeared normal. Everything appeared routine. Outside, the mountain disappeared into darkness, and somewhere during that night, something happened, something so terrifying that 9 experienced hikers abandoned the safety of their tent, something so urgent that they left behind boots, heavy coats, food, supplies, and ran directly into one of the deadliest winter environments imaginable. The next morning, their tent stood empty, and it would remain undiscovered for weeks. By the time rescuers finally arrived, they would uncover evidence so strange that it would spark one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. What exactly happened on that mountain? And why did 9 experienced hikers flee into the freezing darkness? The answers would only make the mystery deeper. The expedition was expected to return by February 12th. When no message arrived, friends and family began to worry. At first, nobody panicked. Experienced hikers often encountered delays. Bad weather could slow progress. Unexpected obstacles could force changes to the route. A few extra days wasn't unusual, but as the days passed, concern turned into alarm. On February 20th, a search operation was launched. Volunteers, students, military personnel, and experienced rescuers headed into the mountains. They had no idea what they were about to find. The search teams followed the group's planned route. Days passed with no sign of the hikers. Then, on February 26th, a helicopter crew spotted something on the slope of Kholat Syakhl, a partially buried tent. When rescuers reached it, they immediately knew something was wrong. The tent was empty, completely abandoned. Inside were sleeping bags, clothing, food, cameras, personal belongings, items the hikers would never have willingly left behind. Then investigators noticed something even stranger. The tent had been cut open, not from the outside, from the inside. Several long slashes ran through the fabric. It appeared the occupants had desperately cut their way out, as if escaping from something. But what? There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of another person, no animal tracks, no obvious explanation, only footprints leading away from the tent. The footprints puzzled investigators. They belonged to the hikers. Some were barefoot, some wore only socks, others appeared to have a single shoe. Yet all of them had walked away from the tent in an orderly manner, not running, not fighting, walking, straight into the freezing darkness. The footprints continued for nearly a mile toward a forest below. Searchers followed them, and there, beneath a giant cedar tree, they discovered the first bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonashenko. Both were dead. They were dressed in only light clothing, far too little for the brutal temperatures. Nearby, investigators found the remains of a fire. Branches had been broken from the cedar tree, some as high as 15 feet above the ground. It looked as though someone had climbed the tree, trying to see something, or someone, in the distance. Then came another disturbing discovery. Between the cedar tree and the tent, searchers found 3 more bodies: Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. All appeared to be moving back toward the tent when they died, as if they had tried to return, as if they realized too late that whatever forced them out was less dangerous than the freezing wilderness. 5 hikers had now been found, all dead, but 4 were still missing, and investigators had no idea what had happened. The mystery was only beginning, because the final 4 bodies would reveal injuries so horrifying that even experienced investigators struggled to explain them. Winter slowly gave way to spring. Snow began to melt. Search teams continued looking for the remaining hikers. Weeks turned into months. Still nothing. Then, in May 1959, the final 4 bodies were discovered. They were buried beneath several feet of snow inside a ravine. What investigators found shocked them. Unlike the first victims, these hikers had suffered catastrophic injuries. Lyudmila Dubinina had multiple broken ribs. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol suffered a massive skull fracture. Semyon Zolotaryov had extensive chest injuries. The force required to cause such damage was extraordinary, yet there were almost no external wounds. One investigator later compared the injuries to those sustained in a high-speed car crash. Then came the most disturbing discovery of all. Lyudmila Dubinina's tongue was missing. Part of her lips were gone. Sections of facial tissue had disappeared. The discovery fueled decades of speculation. Had an animal scavenged the body? Had something happened before her death? Nobody knew. The questions continued to grow. Investigators examined clothing recovered from several victims. To their surprise, some garments showed traces of radiation. Why would hikers on a skiing expedition be carrying radioactive contamination? Again, there was no clear answer. The official investigation became increasingly frustrated. Nothing seemed to fit together. The tent, the footprints, the injuries, the missing tongue, the radiation. Each clue created more questions, not answers. Eventually, the Soviet government reached a conclusion many found unsatisfying. The hikers died due to an unknown compelling force. No further explanation was given. The case was closed, but the mystery was far from over, because for decades, people around the world would attempt to solve what happened on that mountain. And some of the theories were as disturbing as the evidence itself. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains unsolved. Over the decades, countless theories have emerged. Some believe an avalanche forced the hikers from their tent, a sudden wall of snow, a desperate escape. This theory gained support in recent years, but critics point out several problems. The slope was relatively shallow, the tent remained partially standing, and many of the injuries still seem difficult to explain. Others believe military testing may have occurred nearby. Witnesses reported mysterious orange lights in the sky around the time of the incident. Could the hikers have encountered secret Soviet experiments? The Soviet Union certainly conducted classified military operations during that era, but no definitive evidence has ever emerged. Then there are the stranger theories: UFO encounters, unknown creatures, paranormal events, government cover-ups. These theories continue to circulate online, yet none have been proven. Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is the simplest, that the hikers faced a combination of natural forces, extreme weather, confusion, darkness, panic, and a series of tragic decisions. But even this explanation leaves important questions unanswered. Why cut the tent from the inside? Why leave behind warm clothing? Why were some injuries so severe? Why did the group split up? And what exactly frightened experienced hikers enough to leave the safety of their shelter? Today, a mountain pass in the northern Ural Mountains bears the name of their leader, Dyatlov Pass, a permanent reminder of a tragedy that became a mystery. The photographs remain, the diaries remain, the evidence remains, but the answers do not. Perhaps one day, new evidence will emerge. Perhaps a forgotten document will surface. Or perhaps the truth disappeared into the snow forever. What do you think happened on that mountain? Was it an avalanche? A military secret? Or something else entirely? Leave your theory in the comments below. And if you enjoy real mysteries, unsolved disappearances, and stories that refuse to be forgotten, subscribe to Veiled Whisperz, because some mysteries are never truly buried, and some questions never stop whispering.